certainly test you with a touch of fear and famine and loss of property, life and crops. Give good news to those who patiently endure, who say, when struck by a disaster, surely to Allah do we belong and to Him we will all return. Now these ayats are a manifestation of what we have been witnessing in the last 15 months during this genocide in Gaza. We have witnessed Muslims around the world. We have turned this into a significant global event. And perhaps we haven't seen anything like this in our lifetimes, where never before have we seen a genocide that has been broadcast so prominently across the entire world. And most of us have been on a roller coaster of emotions, where we witnessed both the painful destruction of Gaza and the beautiful resilience of its people. We have also witnessed one of the greatest lessons in history since the ceasefire came into effect. Lessons to be marveled, lessons to be emulated, and lessons which gives us lessons of discipline, of unity, of exemplary conduct, raw emotion that has captured the gravity of the moment. And from the first time when the captives were released, we saw the conduct of the resistance. We saw them emulate the Sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the teachings of Islam, the unprecedented standards of ethics, even when dealing with a captured enemy, where they were not humiliated, where they were not degraded, and they were given their human rights and dignity, where they were protected from both emotional and physical harm with proper health care, food, and even clothing. We have also seen the aftermath of the brutal assault on Gaza, where we saw the incredible tribulations and trials of the people of Gaza, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defines it in these verses that I have recited. But also, at the same time, we look at the worldly trials and the tribulations that the people of Gaza have faced to awaken us, to awaken our hearts, and to make us turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have seen all of this playing out in front of our very own eyes. We have seen the unshakable faith of the people of Gaza. This in itself has elevated the ummah right across the entire world. It has woken us up from our slumber, and we have seen how the people of Gaza have placed their trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every circumstance. We've seen it from toddlers and children vowing to be patient. We've seen it from mothers and fathers graciously accepting the martyrdom of their children. They have shown the Muslim world what true submission to Allah looks like. Accepting martyrdom rather than abandoning their homes, praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every situation that they faced with. And this has taught us one great lesson, what it means to be totally reliant on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have seen images of a child pleading with rescue workers to dig her parents and her siblings from under the rubble before even attending to her own needs. Now these images are not only for us to watch, but to take lessons from. They demonstrate to us time and again of the extreme deprivation and their degradation, but more importantly, what an honor it is to be a Muslim. And I'd just like to quote one example. It was during the height of this genocide where a clip was circulated, a 60-second clip where a woman was removed from the rubble. And this is a lesson in gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because she accepted the fact that this happened only by the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in this clip, where this woman's home was bombed, she was trapped, she was wedged between the ceiling and the floor of her home for 5 days and 5 nights, without food, without water, and in total darkness. And upon her rescue, when they pulled her out, she was asked, "How did you survive all this time?" For 5 days and 5 nights in pitch darkness. And her response was, "Alhamdulillah," praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and saying that her strength only came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is at those times, in those 5 days of darkness, and in her own words she mentions, Allah had sent down angels. They came down by my side, they illuminated my space in these darkest of hours. Now this is just one example, and I'm sure there are hundreds, there are thousands of others. But more importantly, it is for us to ponder, for us to reflect, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen the Palestinian nation above everybody else. They have modeled for us how we need to look at the dunya, how to prioritize the akhirah. They have demonstrated through their sacrifices, where they paid the ultimate price in their flesh and blood, that how beautiful their resolve and resilience has been. How the entire world has learned through their example, how they have done more for dawah than most of us have ever in our lifetime. These lessons, brothers and sisters, should again be a stark reminder to us that these are life-changing lessons. These are lessons that are not taught to us by a sheikh or an imam or an alim. These are not lessons that are propagated from a podium or a mimbar, but these are lessons from ordinary people through their spirit of brotherhood, through their pain and suffering, through their patience they've exercised, and they have become teachers to even scholars and everyone else, and role models to the nations of the world. Now, one of the greatest lessons that we can take from the genocide and this experience, particularly in the times that we are living in, is the concept of unity. Gaza has actually shown us how fragmented our ummah is. Often, this is mischaracterized by our own prejudices, by our own ignorance, and by the way, we only want to enforce our understanding and our will on others. And often we use this concept of unity very, very loosely. And we've even lost the essence of what unity truly means. How does unity actually translate into action? Where is the unity of purpose? Where is the unity in its practical form, which we need to demonstrate? And where is this unity when we need it most? And while Gaza has actually taught us the importance of unity, we've seen this even when the sentiments after the ceasefire were expressed or echoed by the Hamas spokesperson Abu Ubaidah. And he spoke about an ummah that is the pride of the ummah of the nation. He spoke about an ummah that is a symbol of its honor, and about an ummah that is returning to humanity based only on the prophetic model. He spoke about every Palestinian home that had enjoyed the blessings of a pure and a righteous martyr, and they would be the one interceding on behalf of their families. He called for every stone in Al-Aqsa that should carry the name of that martyr, acknowledging at the same time fighting alongside our brothers from all resistance factions in unity. And they fought as one rank. And this expression of gratitude to the call of a unified resistance and resilience against the genocide is once again testament as to how important unity is. And by extending this profound gratitude to everyone, this was not just mere a symbol or an expression of appreciation. Abu Ubaidah made a very, very powerful statement. It was a powerful emotion, and this carries deep symbolic meanings. We heard how he made specific mention to a number of people, to a number of organizations. He spoke about Ansarullah. He called the people of Yemen brotherly people. He referred to them as the twin of Al-Sham, as we've learned in the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam regarding Yemen and regarding Sham. He saluted the resistance of Lebanon as a pillar of support. He even mentioned the support from Iraq and Iran and the Arab people on the ground and the millions who took to the streets in protest. Now this is another lesson we can take away from the Gaza genocide, and how this can actually strengthen our iman. This is not only about our prejudices, about how we feel about people, about what a person believes in, because we need to remember one thing. when the enemy looks at us, the enemy doesn't differentiate. They don't differentiate between the different sects. They don't differentiate between the different beliefs, but they look at us as one, and their attack is on one, and their attack is on Muslims only. So this is something that we need to bear in mind. And again, when we talk about Iman, we often ask this question, what can we do for Gaza? And it's an important question. We need to do something. But the real question we need to be asking is, what has Gaza done for us? What has it done for me personally? What has it done for you? What has it done for an entire Muslim Ummah? And I just want to relate a story of an Iraqi doctor, a medical specialist, Dr. Muhammad Tahir. And he spent 7 months in Gaza in the hospitals. And he returned just last week to the United Kingdom. And his story caught my eye. And the first clip that I saw of Dr. Muhammad Tariq was when he arrived and he was received by his family, by friends at Heathrow Airport. And my first impression about this man was his humility and his respect. Now, there were so many people at the airport and in full view of all those who were present. And often we hear of the hadith talking about Jannah being under the feet of your mother. And many of us actually understand this hadith only in a literal sense. How many of us actually live this hadith? And when he arrived at the airport, he saw his mother and he went down on his knees, he grabbed his mother's ankles and he kissed his mother's feet. This is now a practical application of this hadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we've seen it over and over again, even with the Palestinians, those that have been released from captivity in Israeli jails. And when they see their mother, how many of us have seen how many of them? And this is a lesson in its own, in terms of our parents. And when Dr. Tahir hosted an occasion, and what was even more profound, and this is another lesson, where we live in a materialistic society, where we find our success is being measured by tangible results, and just by listening to his experiences. One of the first things he said is, I miss Gaza so much. He says, I prefer riding in a donkey cart to a luxury vehicle. And then he spoke about his experiences about the food. He says, we didn't eat meat for months. We were eating out of tins. There were no fresh vegetables. There was no fresh fruit. And he says the little that we had kept us going. But what was even more important, he spoke about a bond. And he says this bond was so meaningful. He says you knew immediately you were in a battle between good and evil. And he says when something like this beautifies you, you find a lot more meaning in your life. He says you feel the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Gaza like nowhere else in the world. And he felt the day he had to leave Gaza, is he felt like he was being ripped apart from where he actually belonged. Now this was just one experience from a doctor. And we know that this is the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send out people like him, to bring back people so that we can actually learn from their experiences. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of planners. And sometimes, although it may be difficult in our hearts and in our minds to understand certain things that unfold, but again, the people of Gaza has taught us this lesson through their actions and not what we've been accustomed to in learning, in bayans, in sermons. Gaza has also taught us that there is no victory and success without sacrifice. The people of Gaza have taught us that the price of victory is a very, very high price. In their own words, they proclaim, martyrs will pass from us, from amongst the children, from the elderly, from the innocent. Homes will be destroyed, hospitals will be destroyed, schools will be turned into graveyards. But this is a price of victory, and it is only paid by those with the highest level of Iman. Gaza has taught us what it means to be the people from the Quran. We know by now that Gaza has one of the highest concentration of Huffaz. Their masajids have always played a central role in their lives, and it was for this reason that one of the earliest targets by the brutal Israeli occupation forces was the aerial bombardment of the masajids. Gaza has also exposed the hypocrisy within this ummah. We have witnessed the poisonous discourse that is spread by our very own people. We have seen people from within ourselves echo these sentiments. We have seen them echo them from the comfort of their homes, where they criticize the resistance. And they go further, they even criticize the effort of solidarity with the people of Palestine. But we need to be reminded that their discourse is poisonous. All it does is it shows up very, very well in sowing the seeds of doubt and dissension, while they contribute absolutely nothing. They don't even contribute anything positive to the cause of the people of Gaza. Gaza has also taught us about the importance of the media. We know that the Zionists have had a stranglehold on mainstream media for decades. And since they control the narrative, through this, they manage to justify the genocide, they manage to justify the ethnic cleansing and other war crimes. We know about the power of information, but again, we had seen with the advent of social media, unparalleled images within seconds were shared right across the entire world. So with this, we have seen the shift in world opinion. We have seen hundreds of thousands of people taking the streets in the capitals of the world in support of the people of Gaza. Gaza has also taught us a lesson about Western liberal values. We know of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and this was signed in 1948, the same year as the Nakba had taken place. And while the world marveled at the ushering in of this so-called new era based on human rights, we have seen the ethnic cleansing at the same time and the epic suffering of the people of Palestine, which was completely and conveniently ignored. Gaza has also taught us that with strength comes resistance. There are around 2 billion Muslims across the world in around 50 countries. The only entity able to face the aggression of the Israeli occupation and negotiate with them on an equal standing is the resistance in Gaza. We have never seen this in many, many years. So in concluding, brothers and sisters, we need to be constantly reminded that Gaza has taught universal lessons which the Muslim Ummah must ponder and reflect upon. These lessons can shift our way of thinking. It can change this Ummah, and in today's times, no other cause can mobilize Muslims like the cause of Palestine. No other cause will teach us more about the essence of our religion than Palestine. And we need to rebuild Gaza without any doubt. We need to sacrifice our comfort. We need to sacrifice our money. And let us continue to learn from our brothers and sisters in Palestine. At the same time, we need to be grateful to our brothers and sisters in Gaza and in Palestine. We are honored to be one ummah with them. We need to seek their forgiveness from them and from Allah for not doing more for the cause of Palestine. And we make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them victory. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow them and allow us to be part of their liberation. And let us be reminded by the saying of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi rahimahullah, how can I smile? How can food and water taste good to me when Masjid al-Aqsa is in the hands of the Crusaders? Today, al-Aqsa is in the hands of the Zionists, and we cannot afford to smile. We need to do a lot more. Allah grant us the understanding. Wa ma alayna illa al-balagh.